my dollars make it hurt.
Welcome back, everybody, to the show this week. I'm joined by the ruler of the Sportsman's Empire, host of Nine Finger Chronicles and the Hunting Gear Podcast, Mr. Dan Johnson from Iowa. Dan, it's a pleasure, and it's great to have you back on, man.
Good morning. I usually do these like at 9, so it's a bit of a change doing one this early. But dude, if I'm going to do it for anybody, it's going to be you.
Oh, man, I appreciate that. And I just want you to know, I want to begin this episode, Dan, by just saying that I want you to know that I think you're so brave for coming out the way you did to Tony the other day, and that I'm here for you.
All right, man. I thank you.
Yeah.
It's good to have a support group, especially when you make a big life change like that.
How about it? So for those that maybe that didn't catch it, Dan, explain what happened.
I basically have never shot it. I've shot one deer with a gun my whole life. It could have been 2, and it was on a deer drive like 2005, I think it was, or 2006, something like that. And it was like 2. I can't remember if it was 1 or 2. It was like it was so insignificant that it didn't matter to me. I think it was 1 doe with a shotgun during a deer drive, and that was the last time I shot a deer with a gun. Okay. Then about a week ago, I think it was like a week ago today, I went to a Shields and ended up buying a muzzle loader. So this late season, I usually hunt late season with a bow. This late season, I'm going to pick up a muzzle loader and see what kind of situation I can get myself into.
That's awesome. So explain to me, just because I'm not really familiar. I know you get 2 buck tags in Iowa, like for that, like being a resident?
Well, so in Iowa, tag allocation goes like this. Archery tag, statewide. I can go anywhere I want. I can shoot any buck I want. 2 is if I'm a landowner, then I can also get what they call a landowner's tag, only for residents. That tag is not available to non-resident landowners. And then the third option is you get a firearm. Then you get a firearm tag, and that tag can be used either during one of the shotgun seasons or during one of the muzzleloader seasons. And you can buy that tag late season because it's considered a primitive weapons tag. So I can use a muzzleloader. If I wanted to, I could use a crossbow, or I could use a bow or a traditional bow, whatever, as long as it is considered primitive.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. That's pretty cool. Does that change up any of what you plan to do during this time frame, having a muzzle loader in your hand compared to a bow?
It just means I'm going to be able to sit a little further out, put myself into a position where I'm going to be shooting openings and, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Yeah. We're, by the time we're recording this, we're wrapping up the Pennsylvania gun season here. And so it's funny because I had 5 deer down in the month of October with a buck killed. And then I went to Ohio and did a little bit of hunting there. And so I have 2 doe tags left, and I would like to at least fill 1 more before the last couple of days wind up being closed out here, just because I'd like to get a deer full of ground meat, just because I know we would like to have that for us. But yeah, it's definitely, I do enjoy going out with the gun. I'm not really one to whatever. I do prefer archery. My dad, even the same way, grew up gun hunting and everything along those lines. But just that time of the year with the bow in your hand, and just all the things that could go wrong that you have to make right with the bow, just always makes it that much more. I don't know. I just love it.
Yeah. Hey, dude, do you mind if I hijack your show for just 1 minute?
Go for
1 or 2 minutes. Okay. So how many kids do you got?
So 1 and 1 on the way.
1 and 1 on the way. How old's the one that you have
9.
now? Not
9.
okay, 9. So are they out of the Elf on the Shelf stage, or are you still doing the Elf on this? Do you do the Elf on the Shelf?
Surprisingly, so we do it differently, I guess you could say. Surprisingly, my daughter is still uh believing, or she makes a pretty good acting job that she does believe, just because we live in a small town. I would think by now someone in our area would be like, yo, that shit is not real type of ordeal to her. But so we do it. We do a kindness elf. So we make up like a month thing of in advance, where we just say like, today, like, go play with someone new at recess, or say hi to whoever.
Yeah,
We don't really do like kind of crazy things like with it, more so.
yeah.
But
Because if I could time travel, I would probably kill that person. And I'm
yeah.
not about violence,
Hmm.
but I would go back in time to the guy who was like, "Hey, I got this great idea. It's called Elf on the Shelf." I would beat him down and just sit
Yep.
on top of him and beat him and beat him and beat him, because that is the most annoying thing a parent has to do during the Christmas season. Is it's like I'm laying in bed and the last thing that pops into my head is, "Oh shit, I
You
didn't
forgot it.
move. I forgot." Or it's in the morning and I'm going out to get my cup of coffee and I hear my kids coming up the stairs and I'm like, "Oh shit, did I move the elf?" And then I'm running around the house like knocking over furniture and shit like that to grab this damn elf and then throw it in a corner somewhere and be like, "Oh, where's he at this morning? Let's go look." And he's like in a corner on the
Yeah.
floor somewhere.
Dangled upside
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Freaking hate that thing, man.
I know. Well, last night my wife and I, like I said, she's due here to pop, so her patience and everything is pretty thin, and just like very emotional state. And I I came up, I recorded a podcast late last night, and I came up, and she was like, "Okay, so I need you to move it." I was like, "Okay, well, that's easy enough." And we got we gave her like chocolate little coins, right? But I
Mhm.
guess we also put out plastic coins for her to find this morning, just as a little
Yeah.
thing to do with it. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And the note said, just, hey, we scattered 5 coins out like around the house, like, find them. And there's these chocolate coins sitting there. Well, I didn't know there was 2 sets of coins. Like, I just thought
Yeah.
they were. And I walked upstairs and my wife's in bed. She's like, "Did you move the elf? Or I need you to move the elf." I was like, "Okay." So I grabbed the elf and I go, "Well, there's still coins on the countertop." She's like, "I know. There are 5 more," like the "I know, Margot" type of ordeal from Christmas Vacation. I'm like, "I'm just saying, like, give me a break here. I just got done recording. I don't care." I'm just like, "This freaking elf." The same thing like what you said. It's nonsense.
Dude, I think I'm really close to writing a note that just says, "Hey, had to go back to the North Pole for the next week and a half. See ya," and then just put it right back into the drawer that it's been at all
Yeah.
year.
Yep, exactly. Oh my gosh, it's so funny that it's just funny to hear these, relatable stories, and
Oh
I
man.
it's funny. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know. What else is new with you, Dan? How you been? And, man, I loved watching following along. I know from, while you were out there grinding and putting in the work and had some tough times, you came out on top, so that was pretty
Yeah.
cool to see.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. But I gotta go, like, I gotta say one more thing. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah,
Dude, I hate Christmas music. Dude, I don't like Christmas
I'm
music.
with you. Yep.
Like, it was literally 3 days before Thanksgiving this year, and I hopped in the car, and there's Thanksgiving music. And I feel like everybody gets real excited around Christmas time, but I sink into, like, this I don't wanna call it a depression, but I'm definitely, like, a bah humbug, Ebenezer Scrooge type person. Like, I we always had Christmas presents growing up as a kid,
Mhm.
and but we didn't have much. Okay, so it was just something very simple, like usually one toy and then a stocking stuffer, and then it was like that's when you got your socks and underwear for the
Yeah.
next 365 days and things like that. And so, my parents always made sure we had toys or presents for Christmas, but it wasn't like today's world.
Right.
Holy shit, you should see my kids' Christmas list. It was like it's unrealistic even for an adult,
Oh
right?
my. Yeah.
I would like if I wanted to get them everything on the list, I would have to pick up another job. just for an entire year just to afford this stuff.
Now, because how old's your daughter?
She's 10.
She's 10. So, and then your boys are
My boys are 8 and 6.
okay. So, and they're all in sports. Now, do they
Yep.
want like just what are their interests? Are they just all over the place with that type stuff, or is it
My daughter, all her stuff is like girly stuff.
okay?
Right now for her, this thing called a squishmallow. It's called a squishmallow. It's
Yep, yep,
basically a stuffed animal,
yep.
real soft. She wants a couple of those. She wants these things called mini brands, which is like a McDonald's cheeseburger,
Yep. Yep.
but it's
Same here.
shrunk all the way down to like the size of a dime.
Yep.
Okay, there's that. And then my oldest son, he's a sports freak. So he had like 10 NFL football players' jerseys on a list, and then a PS5. And then I think he even put like a McLaren
Oh my gosh.
like car. Like, Dad, can I get a McLaren? I'm like, dude, are you serious right now?
Yeah.
Because you got to be joking, right? You're telling me you're joking. No, man, someday can you buy me a McLaren? I'm like, no, dude. No,
No.
I'm never going to buy you a car. See that 2005 Nissan Titan that's sitting in the driveway that you can see all the way through the fenders because of the rust? Yeah, that's going to be your first
Yeah,
vehicle.
that's yours. Yeah.
And then my youngest son, he's straight video game mode. He's 6 years old. He wants some coloring books, and then he wants like a PS5, and then he lists like
my
30 games. And
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, that's $500. So I don't know. We'll see. Here's what I do. I transferred a certain amount of money into my wife's into the family checking account, and I said,
Right.
I am not transferring any more money this
Yep.
entire Christmas season. So you get this, you spread it as thick or as thin as you want, and from there,
It is what it is.
I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah, my daughter is in the same boat as your daughter, like with the things. The only thing that she would add to that, I would say, was the slime stuff. Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, the slime and so slime kits, all that jazz.
Yeah.
But
Stuff that's really fun to clean out of the carpet.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I know, dude. It's funny just because I was talking to Cody Jenkins last night from the Whitetail Legacy podcast, and Cody's a really good dude, and we were just like saying it wasn't really we talked a little bit about hunting, but we were talking about like he coaches young youth sports, and I like the way he goes, dude. I got 4 kids. He goes, my wife and I, we just embrace the chaos, right?
Oh yeah.
Well, I'm passing a football 10 yards and we're practicing over the shoulder passes. And, he goes, my wife's just sitting there like thinking you're doing like legit drills in the house into the kitchen. He goes, we put things on our ceiling fan that we try to knock down. I'm like, okay, yeah, that is a bunch of chaos.
Wild animals,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. But he goes, I have to appreciate the patience. He goes, but what's funny is when I need them to actually maybe settle down if I need to record a podcast or we need to do something, he goes, and they're going crazy. He goes, it's what we bred. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
what we embraced and all that stuff. So it's just cool to hear different dads doing different things. And I appreciate different perspectives just because there's times where I'll catch myself, man, I don't have any patience right now. And it's like, calm down, dude. It's okay.
You have one kid.
I got one kid.
Soon to be 2. One thing that pisses me off the most is whenever we hang out, there's a couple of my wife's friends or some people that I know that have either no kids or they have like one kid, and they're like, I am so busy all the time. I can't find time in the day. I'm like, are you crazy? Like, shut up. You don't know anything right now. Like, add 2 more kids with full schedules, and then add in fighting. Like so it's like I have no time, but I get 10 hours of sleep a night,
Yeah, right.
What?
Yeah. I'm anxious to see what your next couple of years will be like because my brother-in-law, so my wife's husband, my wife's brother, Riley just turned 13, the oldest. Cade is, I think, about to be 11, and then Duke will be 8 this year. So like just that next couple years older, but the boys are into hockey. Cade does like really good competitive gymnastics type stuff. And they are just traveling nonstop. I mean, Philadelphia for one weekend, then they're in Pittsburgh, and then they're up in New York, and that's just for the hockey. And then Cade's
Yeah.
going all over the place for gymnastics. It's a lot. Like
Yeah.
I can only imagine. I mean, that's why I said at least the boys are doing the same thing with hockey, and you just
Mhm.
have Cade doing her own thing. But it's a lot, man.
Yeah. We're in the thick of it, dude. We got my my daughter is in wrestling 3 or 4 times a week, depending on if there's a tournament,
Yep.
and then dance on Wednesdays. My son is in basketball 2 days a week, wrestling 2 days a week. My youngest son right now, he's only in wrestling, but we just got him fitted for his travel baseball team
I was gonna
outfit.
say, I remember you talking about how early they were starting with that.
Oh yeah, it's going to start. Practices are going to start in January, and so my son is going to be doing. My one son is going to be doing basketball, wrestling, and baseball. We might not start him in baseball until after wrestling's over, but Jiminy Christmas, it's ridiculous. Because when I was in school, and I don't know about you, it was just baseball in the summer, football in the spring, basketball or wrestling in the winter, and then uh baseball in the spring and summer, right? Or
Mhm.
or if they just started soccer when I
Right.
was in high school. And so those were your only options. There was no club teams, there was no, traveling this or that. It was just like you didn't start if you were playing soccer or baseball, it was like for 2 months in the summer until you got to middle school or high school.
Right. Yeah. It's
So,
crazy. I don't know how these kids do it nowadays. I mean, like I said, from being a coach, and I would coach kids during the school year, and then we're winding down, we're getting ready for playoffs, and they're like, "Well, I got to get ready for I'm traveling here." I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, what are we doing here? Are we finishing
yeah,
out trying to go win a district championship, or are you wanting to go to go to some other little tournament down south somewhere?" It was frustrating. It's crazy
yeah,
what these kids do nowadays.
absolutely.
Now, Dan, I want to ask you this because I consider you a successful individual in the woods and outside the woods,
Mhm.
and that's been a topic of mine that I like to talk to certain individuals that I really like. You put in a lot. You're a family guy, as you can tell. Obviously, you run your own business. You have a lot of irons in fire. You got full sneak gear stuff going on, which is awesome. I love my shirt, by the way. You do a lot, and you have to fit a lot into the time frame. And like you were just saying, when certain parents are like, "Oh, I still get 10.5 hours of sleep," you know,
Mhm.
what does it take to be successful in your to you right now?
That's a great question, and I'll tell you, it's not going to be the question, the answer that you think, because I don't think I'm successful right now, and I think that is the reason that I keep moving forward is
Mhm.
because I don't think, uh I really shoot for benchmarks, to be honest with you,
Okay.
and so as I drive forward, and this is not only relatable to how I approach my business, um but it's how I hunt as well. So I have a set of benchmarks that I want to hit. And once I hit those, then there's automatically new goals and benchmarks that I want to hit. So I don't ever say I'm happy with this
Right.
and then I settle. Right. I'm not wired that way. So when it comes to being busy, right, I have one priority, and that is family. I have a little motto that I say, and I'm sure everybody's heard it before, but it's just family over everything. So, like, it, I had to do work last night, right? But I also had to take kids to practices and cook, help cook dinner while my wife took the other kids and moved the other kids around and things like that. So first and foremost, family comes first in everything that I do. And I think a lot of that has to do with because as I get older, I am more aware of how short life is. When you're young and you're in your 20s, you're like, I'm going to live forever. And then you hit like I'm 43 now, and you're just like, holy shit, man, I'm halfway done.
Yeah.
Statistically, I'm halfway done now, over halfway done. And so if I live to 86, right, then that's it for me. So I got another 40. 40 some years of life left. And so I want to be able to live it as hard and as around the people that I love. I'll be honest, man, I have a couple close friends, just
Yeah.
maybe two. Like, and the one guy I've been basically best friends with my entire life. He moved into the area, and now from the area, then he got married, he had a kid, and now he lives across the street from me.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not like I'm and then obviously like guys like you and all the people from
Right.
the network that I keep in touch with all the time. But I just keep my circle really small on that end. And then I focus on my family. And then from a business standpoint, it's just benchmarks. And then I create a process. The process allows me to, like, I'm a huge fan of something called lean manufacturing. I don't know if like you're a shop, are you a shop
Health,
teacher?
health, health and PE.
Health and P. Okay. So in the manufacturing world, there's principles called lean manufacturing, right? And so that means to get as much done as much output as humanly possible in the most efficient way possible. And
Yeah.
sometimes that means the cheapest route. Sometimes that means the least amount of effort, meaning like staffing or one person doing as much as possible. And so that's how I approach my businesses and hunting. It's like I only have limited time to do this, so I have to be on point when I am
Right.
doing it. And so then what I do is I set these processes up, or my strategies even, where I am going and I am doing something a certain way, and then when I hit that point, then everything else behind me is automatic,
Right.
especially in running a business. So I can either hand it off to someone and pay them, or I have a routine that I do it myself, and it just kind of translates over from, and then when you're efficient, and then you can either pass stuff off, that opens more windows for you to start
Yeah.
other businesses, right? And so or do other opportunities, and that's just kind of the goal.
Yeah. So within all that, and I think individuals that like yourself that have the businesses and doing those things, you have to have that inspiration. You need to have that passion. And I think that comes from, your background, right? Like playing
Right.
sports and obviously the guys that really go gung ho with hunting situations. Those are the times and things where we have a little bit of cuckoo-ness to us where we are really extremely passionate about something. And I think that's also a key thing is that I find it difficult talking to certain individuals where they just don't have some sort of passion. Like I always
Hmm.
bust on my wife a lot because like she'll be like, well, you have 2 degrees. You at least are good at almost everything you try, or if you're not good, you could be good," type of
Yeah.
ordeal. And I'm like, Heath, you're a phenomenal writer. Like you need to, like, she's an English teacher, but she's extremely smart. She was valedictorian, like all that type of stuff. And like I don't have the smarts. I have
Hmm.
more. I would call it more of that street smart type of ordeal and just
Hmm.
life experiences. But man, when someone doesn't have a passion for something, I'm like, man, what, like, you're missing out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's, I think, passion and that inspiration and all that stuff is really key.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that I have a when it comes to my businesses, I don't have it's not a passion.
Yeah.
I mean, it is in a way. I've generated a business or businesses around what I would call my passion, and it has turned into uh a lucrative experience for me, right? I
Right.
get to make money doing what I do. But when it comes to how I do that stuff, how I address my passion, or how I do it, it's like I don't really believe in motivation.
Hmm.
I believe in discipline, because without discipline, you can be as motivated as you want to be, but getting up at, I used to, before I was really passionate about hunting, that 4 o'clock alarm clock would go off, and I'd be like, "Eh."
Yeah.
I'm tired. I'm not going today. Right. When
Yeah.
I was, in my early 20s or late teens after, a football game or something like that, I'm not going. And so there's a lot of like shooting your bow,
Hmm.
for an example. If you want to be good at anything, you have to have discipline to do everything that you need in order to be good enough or have the tools, skills necessary to accomplish your goal. And that's where I feel like discipline
Yeah.
really plays a role.
Yeah, I love that. Discipline is huge. And that, like you said, like even shooting the bow and doing those things, hell, that even goes into actually the heat of the moment. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that was my goal this year, was to just have experiences and go out there and have that discipline to kill. And like I said to you, that was, being calculated with my situations. And I was 3 for 3, going into my hunts. Like, my first hunt,
Yeah.
I killed. My second hunt, I killed. My third hunt, I killed. And I was like, "Okay, we're here in the mid-October." The beauty of that for me, Dan, was it didn't put a lot of pressure on me where I was like, "I need to go out. I need to go out." It was okay. I spent time with my family. I was a little bit
Yeah.
more calculated. I know you can't go a lot off of historical data, but I just, again, year after year after year, I know when Northeast PA was starting to heat up a little bit, and I said, "Hey, the weather looks good, the wind looks good. I have
Hmm.
time. Let's go in." And a big doe came, and she came like 8 yards, read the script perfectly. I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, she's a big doe. Let's do it." So I shot her. I watched her fall, and then literally 8 to 10 minutes later, the buck cresses over, the ridge, and I was like, "Okay, well, I'm not." He didn't make me grab my bow right away, and then until he, like, looked at me and I saw his frame. Again, just a 6 point, I'm thrilled with him, but I was like, I never doubled up, and I
Yeah.
told my dad in that specific spot, like, "I'm going to kill a buck here, like, in this tree," and he was like, I told him that in September when we were scouting and
Yeah.
all that stuff, and I did it, and I was calm, cool, collected. I was like, "Okay, I'm 5 for 5." That deer dropped after he made one big bound,
Hmm.
and now I was like, "Now I could go concentrate, maybe go kill a nice big one in Ohio."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that discipline in those 3 previous hunts that led to 2 kills within 10 minutes, was huge for me. Now, like you said, shooting your bow, being prepared, and my mind, that discipline of taking your time and doing all that stuff was a huge, huge
Yeah.
factor in my success this year.
Yeah. Man, obviously you have to have boots on the ground, right?
Yep.
Like boots on the ground, nothing. I think I've talked about this so much, right? I don't have time to do anything. So I'm lucky that before I had kids, I had like 5 years of bow hunting where I just went all in, like
Right.
30, 40, 50 days in the woods, and then scouting and shed hunting all year round. And even when I was turkey hunting, I was looking in the trees and looking for terrain features and things like that, right? So I did that part of it. Now there's been a shift because I'm too busy with family and businesses to go out and live that type of life. I have to be real efficient with my time. But the one thing that I don't think people do enough, and this is again in all aspects of life, is visualize
Mhm.
what, like, I'm not joking, dude. It must be some kind of mental illness for me. But I literally, if there's any period, my wife the other day, we're driving down the road and I was quiet. The whole family was in the car and they were doing their thing in the back seat. My wife was talking to my daughter and I was just zoned,
Yeah.
completely zoned on the road. And my wife goes, "What are you thinking about?" And I go, "Oh, nothing." She goes, "No, tell me, what were you thinking about?" And I said, "On the new property, there's a place where this creek runs into a steep bank, and I want to know how I need to get in there on a northwest wind to hunt it, because I saw a ton of deer traveling in and out of this area throughout the entire month, and I have a trail camera in." And I just was going on. And then, so if that doesn't work and I get busted up there, then I'm going to have to find another access route, or maybe it's just a no-go spot for me where the thermals are playing against the predominant wind direction and blah, 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 and on and on and on. And she's like, sorry, I asked. but for me, that's important because yes, you have to scout, but just because you can't be in the woods doesn't mean you can't think about it. So
Right.
like this year when I shot my buck, I set that stand up on like November 3rd or something like that.
Okay.
And I said, dude, I see some east winds in the forecast. I need to plan for an east wind. So I went in there, I set up an east wind set, and that way I can creep right into the woods and get right up into the tree. I'm gonna blow somebody out right like right when I get in there to set this stand. But what I did was I drove my truck right up to it, and to the timber edge. I left it running. I went into the timber a little ways, set up my set, and then got back in the truck, drove away. And ultimately that I waited for that east wind. And ultimately, long story short, that is how I shot that was the set I shot my buck out of this year.
Wow.
And so, and I was just thinking about, okay, east wind. Okay, how do I access this farm on the east wind? Okay, look at this terrain feature. Look at this pinch. How do I access it? What do I think the wind is going to do? Because as you know, especially hunting hill country, like big timber country, the wind isn't out of the south.
Right.
It isn't out of the west. It's doing something weird, and you have to adjust to it. Right.
Exactly.
And so that's all I think about, man.
Yeah. I'm with you on that as far as the visualization goes. And actually that was actually one of our topics in my health class the other day. And I was using hunting and shooting your bow as an example and everything like that too, because we were talking about like stress management techniques and how visualization does that and how you could run through things in your mind and create success. And I'm like, again, when I was coaching, I would always even say like to the kid, like, just know you're going to get that bad hop at whatever you're playing at third base at one of the fields. And we know third base has a bad hop. Like you're going to get one off the chest. You're going to be late with your throw and that player's going to be safe. Well, then guess what? You get that next hop, the next hitter comes up and you're able to turn double play, right? Like visualize all those different things. And I'm the same way with you as far as that. And, you brought up like the east wind thing. I remember the last couple of years of doing like podcasts and it would get brought up a little bit, but man, Dan, this past year, I've talked to more individuals about killing and having success and how important that east wind is during that November timeframe, because it's a short window that kind of comes like through. Like Jake Hofer from Exodus, he was one that when we talked about it, and literally it was the east wind and he killed his Illinois. And then I don't know about his Iowa buck with it when he got his non-resident tag, but when he did kill his Illinois nice buck with an east wind, which is kind of crazy to hear.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the first person who really ever brought it up in conversation was Mark Drury when we were talking to him about on the Wired to Hunt podcast all those years ago. And he was like, the first south wind after a spell of, well, I'll even take it a step further and say it's every time the wind changes. So if you have 3 days west wind and then it goes east, deer are going to be moving. They're going to be repositioning. You got a north wind for 3 days, 5 days. Then it's south wind, deer are going to move. If you have 5 straight days of south winds, so it's, in my opinion, it's not just a south wind. It's any time you're coming off of a consistent wind, whether that's west, northwest, maybe it'll change a little bit, but if it's predominant out of the west or north or something like that, then you get like all of a sudden a big 360 out of the southeast or southwest. Their deer are going to be repositioning to new bedding areas. I mean, so while I brought that up and while it's fresh on my mind, like the reason I'm not a big fan of hunting a specific buck bed or even bedding areas in general is because in the Midwest, if there is a big wind shift, deer are not coming back to the same beds on a north wind as they are on a south wind. They're repositioning to different bedding areas all the time. And
Right.
man, I've seen deer bed down in non-bedding areas just because the wind is right there. They'll find some thicket or some little cover or even
Cover.
a single cedar tree in a CRP field, get right up underneath of it, and that's where they're at. There's no other cover around them. And if a guy took his time, he could pick them out. But the wind and I don't know, man. It's just like
Yeah.
like hunting bedding areas to me is third or fourth.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. And so we're talking about wind, a little bit about bedding areas and stuff like that. Any trends that you notice, like through social media, through your friends, any trends this past year that kind of jump out to you at all that you noticed either people were doing or success on certain things, anything along those lines for this past year? Because you talk to a lot of people, so that's a good, I think.
So here's a trend that I see, and specifically during archery season, or like you don't hear it too many, like you don't hear this coming out of the gun community, the guys who are, who may just be the gun hunter type. I think bow hunters like to bitch quite a bit.
Yeah.
Right. And they complain, oh, it's too hot for the rut, like this, like that, like that. And so the trend is that I noticed is if things aren't going right, bow hunters are trying to find something to blame their lack of success on. Right. It's too hot. I don't have the right winds. I got pressure, like all that they meanwhile, gun hunters come in, they're like, no, I'm going to sit here. I'm going to blast a deer from 100, 120 yards away. I'm going to load him in my truck and I'm going to go home. Right.
Yeah.
Like bow hunters complain all the time. And I'm guilty of that too, man. I complain. I'm just like, God, it's too hot. I could really use, a big cold front to come through, or, oh man, look at that guy's combining over there, or this guy's running cattle, or, oh, there's another hunter over here. Oh man, my night's over. And so like that's the trend in the social media. It's like going through my Instagram stories and I'm just like, this guy's complaining, this guy's complaining, this guy's complaining. And really it's like the deer are still doing deer things. You just got to go find them.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Anything new that you did this year as far as like, any experience is new? Like last year you got bit in the hand by a nice little dog, like any new experiences, any new gear that you really enjoyed using this year?
Man, I'm to the age now and where I'm at in my hunting career where I am just so happy to be able to do this. Right. I'm just like, man, you understand because you're in it. Everybody listening understands because they're in it. But my wife will never understand it because she's only in it because of me. But she'll never understand it. Like my friends who don't hunt, they'll never understand it, of how much fun it is to sit in a tree and just watch nature go by. It is the ultimate reality television show. And I just love being outside. I love hunting. I love shooting my bow like that. This bow hunting lifestyle that I've chosen and soon to be muzzleloader, right? So because I bought a muzzleloader too, so I'm expanding my range basically. It's just something I think about all the time, and I want my kids to be involved in it, and I'm just blessed to be able. I hate that I'm blessed.
Yeah.
Because I really feel like if you're blessed, that means there's some other power that it has given you what you want. And in reality, success comes from working hard at something, right? Having guts. And whether you're, a mule deer hunter who has to climb to 13,000 feet, or you're a guy who's hunted 25 days in a row to try to kill a buck, or whatever the case may be. Like I don't believe in, like, this is going to sound weird, but I don't believe in praying and saying, dear Lord, send me a big buck, please. I don't believe in that. I believe in a lot. Dear Lord, let me be healthy, right, so I can go out and put my will down on Mother Nature. Right. And so I know that may sound a little weird or off on conversation, but that's what I don't know, man.
I'm with you
Now,
on that. Yeah.
so I don't know how to end that sentence.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No. I understand where you're coming from for that. You know, I think back to this past season and the morning that I tagged out in Pennsylvania with my buck tag. That was a sit. It was my first time in that area. It was the first hunt that I officially had in that area, especially with the bow. And I just remember the yellows, the oranges, the reds of the
Mm,
trees, and like you said, the sun, that just that morning, I could taste it, I could smell it, I could see
mm,
it. And then the next one was my last morning in Ohio. And that one was I went into the same tree. I left my predator platform. I left everything in the tree and I just climbed up and got back in it the next morning. And that morning, Dan, it was like a purple, pinkish, I'm not a big field hunting type guy, but where deer were moving into this pinch point of the corner, I was just tucked into the timber there off of this trail, and I saw some the two biggest bucks ever hunting wise on their feet, and it was just such a morning. And again, that is a first, and for me of waking up and seeing that with just that magical colors of the sun in the morning and just hearing the
yeah,
sounds and different sounds too from what I'm used to. Like normally it's, you might hear tractor trailers and all that type of stuff, like depending on where you're at and on the public land here. Whereas there it was, like you said, farm machinery. You could hear different farm animals, and it was just such a unique and something that I'll cherish. And I could, hopefully next year I get a chance to do that again.
dude, I heard a turkey gobble in November. That was a
Yeah,
first for me.
same here in Ohio. That
Yeah.
was the one morning. It was my second morning in Ohio, and they were just going hammering off the roofs. I was like, I might have to buy a fall turkey tag because I wouldn't shy away from that. But yeah, I it was just every hunt this year was just something magical, and I took it in as an experience, and I love that every single year I rate my success by something different. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I think that's important too.
Oh, absolutely, man. The kill is the cherry on top. That's
Yeah.
really all it is. Uh, I don't know, man. Like they say, man, it's not the destination, it's the journey.
Yeah.
That's cliche, but it's the truth, man, because the journey is what makes you who you are. It the destination, and I don't know if for hunting, if you ever really reach a destination, maybe when you die, right? Or
Yeah.
you're so old and decrepit that you can't even get into a tree stand anymore. And then the destination is you sitting on a rocking chair, watching your grandchildren and your maybe great grandchildren show you pictures or pull up to the driveway with a big buck in the bed and or walking through your living room or sitting on your couch and looking at all your mounts. And the destination is really just reflection on all the past seasons that you've had. And life, man, it is doing so many kick-ass things when you have the ability to do it, spending time with the people that you love and who you can relate to, and just like put together. Because my buddy growing up, his parents' house, they had a sign in his bathroom. So anytime I'd go into his bathroom to take a piss, there's this sign right above his toilet, and it says something along the. I'm not gonna get it right, but it's like you're not supposed to pull in to heaven with like this perfect body and perfect health, and say, "Oh, my life was." You're supposed to basically just slide in, scars, broken bones, and basically just saying, dude, that was one hell of a ride, right?
Yeah.
And that's how you're supposed to live your life. And so that's my goal, is to try to get as much of that in and be a good dad, and like the hunting is my wild ride. Being with my family is definitely a wild ride, and just trying to be. And that's why on the Nine Finger Chronicles podcast, I always end the show with like just good vibes, man,
Yeah.
because positive energy goes a long way. And even in the days, and I don't even know why we're talking about this now. I think you asked me a question about deer hunting, but like positive energy and trying to stay calm and positive in very stressful and negative situations, right? Because one thing that I notice in life is when a very stressful situation hits a group of people, if you panic, if you uh, go negative, then then the other people go around you go negative.
Correct.
But if you remain calm and you remain positive and you are cool, calm, and collective in this moment, whatever this pressure, high pressure moment may be, everybody else around you seems to start to be positive, so it's basically this gigantic snowball effect that you just spread positive energy. And so you have a choice, man. You can be negative and you can promote negative energy, or you can be positive and promote positive energy, and life is just better. I mean, the best, like if life makes, they say if life makes you lemons make lemonade, but I switch it up a little bit. I go, if life hands you a shit sandwich, eat it with a smile on your face, because there's literally nothing you can do about it.
Exactly. And Dan, that is huge. And that was a big coaching metaphor that I always used to like to say, like when, the hard part about coaching young adults is when, not everybody gets to play. Right. And at some point in time, those individuals were really good, but how can you accept the fact that like maybe you're not starting today or the first couple games, but then what can you do to better yourself that
Mm-hmm.
you could either change that model, right? Like how
Yeah.
how can you put like where you are, I don't want to say worthy, but like that you're good enough now to get that chance or get that opportunity or something along those lines and not be a distraction. Because
Yeah.
what ends up happening is, especially for baseball, when you have a team of 17 players or 18 plus players and there's only 9 spots where people could play, maybe one is a DH, so now 10 players are in the lineup technically, and there's 7 other people on the bench. How can that, like, I've seen it. How could where one person is just that snowball effect, and then there's that little click, and they're like, "Well, I'm not playing." Well, yeah, okay, well, yeah, you're not playing either. Yeah, you should be playing. And it's just like you said, that negativity just
Mm-hmm.
it could catch like wildfire. But you see that too in every social media outlet, like hunting,
Yeah.
non-hunting things. And then man, it sometimes could suck the life out of people. And like you said, if you could just have patience and have that resilience of to be more positive. That's why I love surrounding. I'm a big proponent of surrounding yourself with good people. Even like you said, even if you have a core small group of great friends, but you're
Mm-hmm.
surrounded by other individuals where you could catch up with, say a few words. Maybe you're not connected to a certain situation and you get a perspective from them that it will help you out. That
Yeah.
is huge.
Man, I going like bringing it back to deer hunting, and this is going to translate into how I talk to my daughter,
Hmm.
but she was struggling with wrestling, saying, I'm not good. And this is only the beginning of her second year of
Right.
wrestling. And she goes to a really hard wrestling club. I mean, it is like watching her practices. I'm like, I'm glad that's not me in there. Right. And so, but guess what? She struggled her first couple tournaments. She's now been in this club for a couple months now, and she went and she beat a girl this past weekend who was, you know, got second in a really major tournament the previous year. Okay. And so, just like I told her, I go, hey, sweetheart, my favorite thing to do is deer hunt. But did you know that it took me 10 years of deer hunting in order to like know what I know now and be on this roll so I filled my Iowa archery tag every year since 2016. Okay. Knock on wood, I don't jinx myself. But but everybody's like, oh, Dan Johnson, he shot, he shoots a good buck every year. Actually, I shot a good buck every year for the last 8 years. But for the previous 10 years, I shot some deer, but man, I also put my tag in a drawer somewhere.
Mhm.
And so it took me 10 years to be proficient, to understand deer movement, to understand their behavior, to understand like wind, time of year. I mean, there's so many layers to this onion that we're talking about here. And you have to have patience,
Yeah.
right? Greatness and success does not come in one deer season. And then in 2016, after, see, 2014, didn't fill my tag. 2015, no, 2013, 2014, 2015, 3 years in a row, didn't fill my tag. Didn't fill my tag in 7, 8, filled it in 9, didn't fill it in 10 or 11, filled it in 12. And then 13, 14, 15 didn't fill my tag.
Right.
And so then in 2016 is when I really went into the process of like what we talked about earlier. And
Yep.
I was just like, slow down, be observant, do your off-season stuff, be prepared, focus, visualize, go through the steps. And it just kind of clicked for me in 2016 after,
Yeah.
10 years of serious hunting.
I love that.
Serious hunting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that, Dan. So kind of to wrap things up a little bit, we're in the thick of things right before Christmas. So December, you're getting ready to still get out with the muzzle loader and everything like that. How many hunts do you plan on doing that? And then what is next for Dan Johnson as far as like once hunting season rolls around?
I honestly don't know how much I'm going to get out for muzzleloader, right? I have one deer on my mind. It's the buck that I shot and did not kill.
Okay.
I had buck fever. I blew the shot during archery season. That buck is still alive. He still has all his points. He hasn't broken anything off. He's still running around the farm that I have. And so I'm hoping for about 2 foot of snow. And then I'm going to go late season in Iowa starts December 18th.
Okay.
So that's when I can go. My wife has shown interest in coming muzzleloader hunting with me this year. So I have to sight in the muzzleloader and get it set up for her as well as me. So we'll be able to share the same weapon. And then just it's going to be hard to go hunting during the Christmas period because kids are off school.
Yeah.
And my wife has to work. So that just means that either I'm taking kids with me somewhere, or I'm taking kids with me, or I'm just going to have to find the right days to go out and get the job done. And then after that, it's just nose to the ground business and just going as hard as I possibly can. Like once the hunting season is over, that is when I just switch gears and I'm sitting in this chair all day long and doing business stuff.
Yeah. Before we get off, I do want you to give a shameless plug for the full sneak gear. Like, what is that and all that type of stuff?
Yeah, man. Full sneak gear is just an idea that popped into my head, and I crunched the numbers, and it's just like to start this business, it was fairly low. Like I'm forgetting the word. The capital needed to start this business was fairly low. So I started an apparel company. For those of you who are watching the video of this, wherever that lands, this is one of the t-shirts, full sneak gear. Right now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 t-shirts, the 9 Finger Chronicles hat, a stocking cap. Within the next week and a half, 2 weeks, I should have another t-shirt, another crew neck hoodie, another blaze orange stocking cap, and I got some kick ass, dude. I'm gonna have to show it to you. I got some kick ass t-shirt designs coming. And the reason I started this company was because like until recently, there hasn't been a lot of like cool designs. It's always been like a European mount, almost looking like kind of an affliction t-shirt
Yeah.
type type deal. And so I wanted to change that up a little bit. And so I wanted to put it, some unique like almost build like a lifestyle brand for guys who are serious about hunting deer, dude.
Yeah, I like that. Oh my gosh, the affliction just brings you back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, Dan, I appreciate you so much for everything that you do for me and the Antler Up podcast. Being on the Sportsman's Empire really means a lot, and I always enjoy talking with you. And man, I always love tuning in and just seeing what's happening in your world. And dude, I appreciate it. So obviously, if you're listening to my podcast, I'm for damn sure I hope you are already listening to Dan over on the Sportsman's Empire. So check it out. Dan, any last words, any closing remarks?
Hey man, it's just I always try to end on a positive note. And so like this is gonna sound weird coming from a hunting podcast, but just like know that if you're struggling in life, whether you have, maybe your car didn't start, something very small, or you're going through something major, whether it's an illness or a sickness, positive energy wins every single time. And so just try to stay as positive as possible, even if it's in the most negative situations, and you'll come out all right, man. Even when the outcome seems bleak and very bad for you, just know that you have two options. You can do it positive or you can do it negative. And I think we all know what the better option is.
No doubt. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Antler Up.